In the next edition of It's About Money, my guest will be Tony LaFountain, and he is the supervisor for the town of Penfield, and we'll have a great discussion about taxes and how to run a town. Stay tuned for the next edition of It's About Money. Hello and welcome to another edition of It's About Money. I'm Nannette Nocon and thank you for joining us. We have an exciting program at our show today. My guest is Tony LaFountain and he is the town supervisor for Penfield. Tony, I'm so glad to be interviewing you today.
Nannette, good morning and thank you for allowing me to spend some time with you.
Oh, my pleasure. So tell me, what does a town supervisor do? What are the biggest responsibilities?
Well, the biggest responsibility that I have as I was elected by our residents is to serve them. They're our customer, and we can never forget that. And we need to make sure each day that we are doing everything we can to best serve our customer. Behind the scenes, it's about running the town. I am the administrative leader of the town. I oversee the town operations, the day-to-day operations. I make sure all of our departments have what they need to run their business. I'm kind of a blocker, if you will. I help them remove those barriers so they can do their job the best and the easiest that they can.
That's great. That's brilliant. Just have the town's operation running smoothly.
That is correct.
That's fantastic. Now, one doesn't go to school to become a town supervisor. What brought you, what experiences and education do you have that brings you to run for the position of supervisor and then winning the position?
This path has been somewhat of an interesting path over the years. When I graduated from college, I had a degree in engineering, and I came to Penfield. I followed my wife, and came here to set up our home. And my first job out of college was working for the town of Penfield. And I did that for a number of years in the Public Works Department. So I had the opportunity to work on road construction, sanitary and storm sewer construction, and everything associated with public works. So it gave me a great overview of the town. I had an opportunity and was recruited to go to Eastman Kodak Company and spent a wonderful 30 years at Kodak. And my duties and responsibilities were fire and security. So it's kind of an interesting turn if you take a look at the whole engineering construction side of things, that I wind my way into government and fire and security. But when I left for Kodak, I was very passionate about the town and the community that I lived in. And so I became more active. I got involved with the Zoning Board of Appeals, and I did that for a number of years. And then I ran for public office as a town board member. And that really gave me an opportunity to help continue to give back to this community that has given so much to myself and family and all the residents of Penfield. I also had an opportunity to spend almost 6 years in the county legislature, so that gave me a break from the town and another dimension of government. And what happened is that Kodak offered a retirement plan, and it so happened that the previous supervisor was not going to run for another term. So everything came together, and I came back home. And I have to say, coming back home to Penfield was just absolutely wonderful, and I've enjoyed this last 15 months in my first term as town supervisor.
That's fantastic. People speak so well of you. So it's,
thank you very much.
Very nice. So for 2010, you had a budget of 15.5 million, but you only spent 14.5 million.
Yes.
That's a big savings, about 6.5% of the budget.
Yes.
What made that happen? What were some of the actions that you took to make 2010 a successful year from a fiscal perspective?
Well, it really is about teamwork. I've got a great group of people that I work with on the town board. We have a terrific staff, and our department heads here. One of the things that we had talked about is that from a government standpoint, government is always targeted about the amount of money that they spend. That money comes from the taxpayers, and the taxpayers are saying enough is enough. And one of the things that I said when I came into the town is we would look for ways to streamline, better spend our taxpayers' money. So one of the things that we looked to do is we took a look at essentially every application of the town, all the departments, and we just started to look for ways to streamline and cut our spending and reduce costs. And we did that through a number of ways. As positions opened up through retirement, we elected not to fill those, but to look for workarounds and to streamline some of the processes. We looked at cutting back on some of our equipment purchases, and we just looked at every aspect of the government to see what we could do a little bit better and a little bit differently. And I can't say enough for all of our employees, because it really is them that come to us with those thoughts and ideas as to how we do that.
That's fantastic. So it sounds like your corporate background also helped take a look, give that perspective.
I will say that that was definitely a benefit as I had an opportunity to take a look at things. The budget that I had responsibility for at Kodak is a little bit bigger than the budget that I have a responsibility for here at the town. So it really gave me some great insight as to what we might be able to do. And quite honestly, government needs to run like a business. There are certain aspects of government that are different than business. But at the end of the day, we have to make sure our finances, the money that we spend, is in the best way we can spend it.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Now, Monroe County is one of the highest property tax, has one of the highest property tax rates in the nation. However, Penfield's rate ranks one of the lowest in the county. What would you say account for that advantage for Penfield?
Certainly, the big thing that the county faces year on year is a lot of unfunded mandates. When I was a county legislature and working with the county executive, I chaired the Ways and Means Committee for a number of years. And the problem that the county is faced with is that they have a very small percentage of their budget that they have control over. So out of $1 billion, 800 million of that is unfunded mandates. Those are things that the county has to do. Those are the things that there is not an option not to do them. And then there's about 200 million that the county executive has to work with and to control. So one of the things that we work to try to do is to go back to the state and allow us, instead of just dictating the programs, allow us to manage those programs that fit Monroe County, because it's going to be different than down in New York City, and it's going to be different than up in the Adirondacks. And so that is the big piece that all counties are going to be faced with, is the unfunded mandates. From a Penfield side, we worked very hard, again, to make sure we're providing those services that our residents really need. And some of the things that other towns may elect to provide, and I'll use just one example about leaf pickup. We do not do that. We try to educate our residents as to how they can dispose of leaves, either by composting, mulching, and other environmentally friendly ways. But there are some services we just do not do because we believe that is the residents' responsibility. And by not doing that, we can cut back on some of our equipment, some of our personnel, and again, give our residents truly the services that they need to live each and every day.
It also teaches responsibility for the surroundings that we have.
It does.
No, help me understand. So that piece of it, help me what an unfunded mandate is, just so our audience.
Sure, I'll use probably the biggest unfunded mandate, and that's with regards to Medicare. What happens is that the state will say, you need to provide this program. It's not an option. These are our guidelines. This is what you need to do. And so in order to provide that to our residents, we do that. That costs money for labor and benefits for people running the program, for facilities, for materials, tools, and other equipment that they may need. And so what happens is that there is not the opportunity to say no. If you say no, the state will come in and run the program and just charge back the county. And we all know that the state isn't necessarily quite as responsible with their funding as they could or should be. So it's better that the local counties do it. The problem is that some of these programs over time have really been added to, and they lost the intent of what they were originally set up for. So there really needs to be some streamlining on a lot of fronts. And I don't want to just pick on that one particular program. I think think each and every year we should be looking at all of our programs and making sure that they're as efficient as they can possibly be.
Sure, absolutely. That's amazing. I guess I never thought of it from a perspective of something that's unfunded, but you have to do it by law.
Right.
So hence the unfunded mandate. So what would be the 5 biggest expenditures of the town? I mean, payroll would probably be one, right?
Payroll is our biggest. If we take a look at our current budget of approximately $15.2 million for 2011, 68% of it is labor and benefits. So that works out to be about $10.4 million. And so that is the biggest piece that we have. But within that, I think it's important to break that down in a little bit more detail. Certainly there's the salary aspect of it, but then there's the benefits, and that's the interesting part. Going from 2010 to 2011, our actual salary budget line went down $100,000. In that same period of time, our benefit line went up $300,000. So if you take a look at that, drilling down a little bit more detail, you have pensions, you have health care, and you have workers' compensation. And each one of those historically go up year on year, double digits, and that really is a problem. And one of the things that the Supervisors Association across Monroe County are looking at is to work with our elected representatives in the state and the governor to say we need some pension reform, because we cannot continue on with the model that we have today, because we'll bankrupt the state overall. Now, one of the other interesting things that I'd just like to point out is that last year a group of supervisors got together and said we need to take control of this healthcare problem that we've got, this increase that's going up 12, 15, 18% year on year. And we formed a consortium. There are 10 municipalities and an authority that came together, and we have leveraged that back to MVP and Excellus to say, individually, you weren't listening to us. Collectively, we have a stronger voice. And they stepped up, and we went through and we bid that, and we were able to significantly reduce, in fact, just in Penfield for 2011, we were able to reduce what we budgeted for healthcare by $100,000.
That's significant.
So it is all of those areas that we must take a look at, and we must take a look at year on year. If we don't pay attention to the detail, those programs will get away from us, and they'll continue to grow and expand, and we really need to make sure that we're doing that on a very regular basis.
So help me equate the salaries, the payroll, to the actual services that the town provides. You know, when we have a rough winter, so snow removal would probably be one of those, but I'm just speculating. What are the top things that, if we were to say, payroll attributed to services?
Absolutely. So, and I think you really hit it because all of us are just coming off a horrific winter with all the snow and ice. And so one of the big items within our budget in highway is our equipment and salt. For 2011, we had $315,000 dedicated just for salt. We spent all of that. And as I take a look at the salt barn is empty. And we have, if you think about this fiscal year, we have 2 more months of winter ahead of us in November and December of this year. The equipment is another one that I mentioned, that we have a number of different departments that rely on a lot of equipment, snow plows, lawnmowers for cutting our grass for all of our parks and programs like that. So that equipment, to give you an idea, one snow plow fully equipped is about $250,000. So when you see the trucks go down the road, that's $250,000 per truck. So those costs continue to escalate. Those are all contributing factors. And then I guess the last point that I would make is that the price continue to go up on all of our goods that we purchased each and every day, whether it's our paper supplies, whether it's materials that we use within our recreation programs. All of those prices continue to go up. So we're just constantly looking for ways to buy smarter, pool our resources with other governmental agencies to leverage that purchasing power.
I see. Great, thank you. We'll take a quick break. My guest is Tony LaFountain from Penfield. He's the town supervisor. We'll be right back.
I'm Nebraska Attorney General John Bruning, former National AG President. Every year, consumers just like you fall victim to complex and wide-ranging fraud and identity theft scams. Protect yourself. Never use a money transfer service to send your hard-earned money to someone you don't know personally. Not for online purchases, a job promising easy money, or a lottery you've allegedly won. Scammers are never who they say they are. Scam scenarios change daily, so be skeptical and use common sense.
And we're back. My name is Nannette Nocon, and we're talking to Tony LaFountain, who is the supervisor of the town of Penfield. Thanks again for doing this.
Absolutely, it's been wonderful. Thank you.
So tell me about programs that help reduce taxes for residents, like the STAR program and the Enhanced STAR program.
Sure.
So STAR program is available to everyone, a homeowner, right?
That is correct.
But with some cap.
Yes, yes. Those are state programs that we do receive and our residents do receive. So the average resident does receive a STAR rebate. The Enhanced STAR rebate is for those residents that are 65 and older. And that certainly helps, especially our aging population, maybe on fixed income or limited income. So every little bit helps as we go through. Those programs are wonderful. I just can't reiterate enough the importance of us looking for ways to reduce cost and cutting spending. That really will help our residents the most and the best as we do that, is reducing cost and reducing the amount of governmental spending.
So help me understand that. It's a state deduction. Does the state reimburse the town for that reduction in price?
What happens with the STAR rebate is that actually reflects on the tax bill that the town issues for that, and so that is the program that the state puts in place, the legislature passed, and then those savings are then pushed down to the local level to implement at each one of the local municipalities.
I see. So they basically allocate those funds
That is correct.
So it's
yes.
not really a reduction in your cash in cash flow
right.
revenue.
That is correct.
Okay, that's good to hear. So you want to educate town our residents about the enhanced program.
Yes,
yes.
And I think it's also important that there are a number of different exemptions that our residents could be eligible for. So it's important for them to take a look on a regular basis to make sure that they, in fact, are taking advantage of that. So, the STAR program, the Enhanced STAR program. The Enhanced STAR program, again, is very important to our elderly. But then there's also programs for our veterans, and so it's just important to make sure that if you're entitled to take advantage of those programs, certainly to do that so that it helps our residents overall.
That's fantastic. That's great. Absolutely. What are some of the services that are underutilized in the town? Town offers it, but the residents don't take advantage of it. Would there be anything that's such as that?
You can. There probably, if I take a look at that and break that down, it may differ depending upon who you're speaking to and what their involvement or interest is. And so I'll use our recreation programs, for instance. Our recreation programs are very active for different groups of our residents. And one of the things that I've been challenged our recreation department to do is that making sure that those programs that are being utilized by the residents, that those residents pay for that versus spreading that cost across the entire town. So you do have some programs that are more heavily used than others. But I think it's important to pay as you go for those versus just automatically spreading those around the town. We certainly do have a number of programs. I take a look at our library, for instance, a great asset within the community. If I talk to our librarian, she'll tell you that she is always looking for more people to come in. And so this is a little bit of a plug to say that, in the day and age of Kindles and the various electronics that we have, our library still offers a tremendous amount of services above and beyond just taking out a book. While that may be their primary mission that they have a wonderful opportunity and resource for computers and accessing computers for the general public. They run a number of wonderful programs, educational programs for all age levels. And so I would just encourage all of our residents to utilize the library. They get good traffic, would love to see them get better traffic. That's a program that I think the town has been well invested in, and they in turn have provided a great service to the community.
That's terrific. You're absolutely right. So it's the changeover, I think Amazon announced that they sell more electronic books as of now, as of May 2011,
yes,
compared to actual paper copies.
Right,
so
right.
It's amazing transition. So you mentioned that you cannot cut your way to success. How does it look for the future of Penfield in terms of cost cutting and revenue generation?
That is going to certainly be a big challenge. Out of all the things that I work on day in and day out, that is the one that keeps me awake at night as I take a look at that, because you're right, you cannot cut your way to success as we go through. Since I've been in office, I have not had a resident that has come in and asked me to raise their taxes. They, most of the time, ask me to look for ways to reduce our overall tax burden. So it's going to be incumbent upon us as we go through to look at all of our positions to make sure that we are providing those services in the best needs of the town. I've got to make sure roads are safe and roads are plowed and maintained properly, so emergency vehicles and our residents can get to and from work and school and other activities. I've got to make sure that the drainage is in check and controlled so we're not flooding out properties. And I have to make sure our sanitary sewers are working so that we're not backing up and creating some health, safety, welfare problems with our residents. After that, then we have to start taking a look and continue to evaluate everything that we do every single day, every single week, and every single year, to make sure that we're maximizing those programs to the best we can. We know that the unfunded mandates are going to continue to come down from the state to the county and from the county to the town. We know that the cost of goods sold and programs and health care and things like that are going to continue to go up. It is just very important that I think all of our residents across not only the town but the county work with all of their elected officials at all levels to make sure we're doing everything we can to reduce the cost of government and the size of government. And I think the local, and I'm obviously a little bit biased, I think local government does it the best. A resident can get in touch with me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, whether it be in the office. They can call my cell phone, they can call my home, they can see me in Wegmans or any other business within the community. So I'm the most accessible, our local officials are the most accessible. As it gets higher in government, our residents feel like they just don't have any control. And a lot of times our elected officials sometimes give the appearance that they're not listening. So I think it's incumbent upon all of us all the time to make sure we're listening to the people and doing everything we can to manage and reduce costs.
So does it help with the revenue to have more businesses in the community, more residents, or is there kind of a point where there's so much services you have to give that you don't want to grow the town anymore?
There certainly is a balance there that we have to take a look at. The more businesses that we add, that's less impact onto our school districts, and as they pay their taxes, that helps balance out some of the taxes that our residents have to pay. So the communities always have to be careful that they're not balancing their budgets solely on the back of our residents and our homeowners. That balance of business and residential is really very key. And in Penfield, we've really taken a focus of being a residential community, having our rich agricultural heritage in East Penfield, and to keep that alive and well, our farming community, because that's important to all of us. And then to have the right businesses so that we not only are supporting the town, but also we're doing it in a way that is being sensitive to traffic, congestion, and making sure we're just getting the right mix for this community.
So balance is important.
It is extremely important.
I wasn't even thinking about the agricultural aspect of that, but there's a lot of farming sections of Penfield.
There is. Our East Penfield, approximately 40% of that area is still pretty much opened in an active agricultural. And I think all of us are getting concerned that as that shrinks, where is that slack being picked up? Where is our food supply coming from? How are we going to do that? And it is a wonderful, and that's part of our rich heritage that we have in Penfield that has been generations strong.
Sure, yeah, we still come back here. I live in the city and come back to Penfield to buy fresh vegetables, corn,
yes.
particularly. It's wonderful. Now, has Penfield ever issued municipal bonds in the past?
We have. We issue bonds on some occasional basis as things come up. Most recently, we purchased a piece of equipment, a specialized piece of equipment in our highway department last April that we issued municipal bonds for. We certainly are, again, it's this balance of trying to make sure that we're doing it for the right reasons, for the right purpose, that provides us the greatest amount of support. And in this particular case, we purchased a paver. We were competing for use of a paver at a very high cost across the county because it's a very limited type of use piece of equipment. So now we've got the ability to do our work. We also lease or rent it out to surrounding communities, so that helps offset some of the cost of that. And that's good not only for Penfield, but for the East Side. And that's very important that I just want to mention that our East Side partners, we work very closely together, Webster, Perrington, Pittsford, and Irondequoit to share services and to share equipment and resources because at the end of the day, we can't afford all of us to have the same piece of equipment to be purchased. It makes sense to buy a piece of equipment and share that. And if we spread that across that group, that really helps offset some of those costs.
That's great. We're almost out of time. I would love to ask you more questions, but what would you say is the most proudest thing that you've done as town supervisor in your tenure at Penfield?
Well, first off, just the fact of having the honor and pleasure of serving the residents to me is just absolutely wonderful. Being a resident of this community for 36 years, it is just an honor and a privilege. As I look back on 2010, managing our budget and coming in under budget, significantly under budget, to position us to minimize any spikes or major spikes in our budget as we go forth. We completed a number of different programs this past year. We cleaned over 8 miles of ditches, streams, and creeks. That helps minimize flooding for a lot of property owners, especially out in East Penfield and other parts of the community. We completed an upgrade of a lodge at Harris Whalen, and our lodges just get used on a regular basis because our parks are so wonderful overall. We have to walk the talk, and one of the talks that I've been making to our staff is we've got a couple of areas in the community that have had some contamination from previous owners, and now we're in the process of working to get those cleaned up to be environmentally sensitive. And then the last item that really stands out is that we formed an energy and environmental advisory committee, and that committee is made up of residents across the community, and we've been looking for ways to enhance our recycling, upcycling, reusing, looking for alternative means of energy such as solar and wind power. And this is really where we need to be. This is another opportunity for us to look for ways to cut costs and do the environmentally responsible thing for our community. And that's been very, very exciting.
That's great. Go Penfield.
Yeah, go Penfield.
Thank you very much again, Tony. It's been a pleasure having you.
It's been my pleasure, and thank you.
And thank you, our guests, for watching us. This is Nannette Nocon, and it's about money. Thank you for watching our show. Until next time.
Thanks for tuning in to today's show. If you have any questions for It's About Money, please email Nannette at nnocon@aol.com. This program was produced through Penfield Community Television in Penfield, New York.